Don't you like it?
Meeting of the Morrison County Board of Commissioners will come to order. Please stand and join us in the saying of the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Morning, everybody.
Mr. Chair. Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Approval of the county board minutes.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Commissioner Jelinski, second by Commissioner Wincher. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Additions or deletions? Tabitha? Jillian?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Commissioner Wilson,
Second by.
second by Commissioner Blaine. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. First item on the agenda, life-saving awards. Sheriff? Morning, Sheriff.
Good morning, Sheriff.
All right, well, first off, I'm honored to be here today to recognize some heroes amongst us. We had an incident back on January 28th, 2020, and Greg Hyatt ended up hitting the ditch, was unresponsive, didn't have a pulse, he was turning purple in color, he wasn't breathing, and these heroes showed up and they took care of him. And because of their quick response and the actions that they did, he's alive today. So Greg Hyatt, would you please stand? If you can give him a round of applause, please. Thank you. So what we did, usually on a life-saving award, we'll read each individual letter, but this was definitely teamwork, so I'm just going to summarize all the actions taken by these men. Before we start, Greg, our chaplain, maybe we'll say a few words and
Father God, we thank you for the opportunity that we have today to recognize those heroes among us. Thank you, Lord, that Greg and his family are here today. What a wonderful thing. It's so good to celebrate good news when we have so much bad news in the news. And we just thank you, Lord, that we can be here together today as commissioners and community citizens celebrating our life-saving efforts. And we thank you, Lord, so much for all the men and women in blue, brown, maroon, EMTs, fire and rescue, and our firefighters. Thank you, Lord, so much for all these people who put themselves on the line every day. And we thank you, Lord, for the opportunity to celebrate some of them. In Jesus' name, amen.
thank you, Chappie. So recently at a church sermon, I heard the sermon was discussing talents and what you do for work, what your vocation is, and is it a calling or is it a job? And a job provides you with pay, benefits, sometimes perks. A calling is your passion. It's serving others versus serving yourself. And it's using our talents and good works to serve our neighbors. So these gentlemen present here today represent what a calling really is. And we are here today to show our appreciation and to recognize their good efforts. So I will introduce these gentlemen, and then as I call your name, please come forward and just stand over here, facing the crowd. Start with Pierce Police Chief Eric Hennigan. Come on forward, please. So Eric was involved in this call. He's currently the police chief of Pierce, and he's been the chief since 2012. Prior to becoming the police chief, Eric was a conservation officer. And prior to that, he worked with Morrison County Sheriff's Office as a canine handler. And he started his career in 1998 as a Morrison County Correctional Officer. Next is Deputy Dan Rushlow. Dan was also a canine handler. He's currently a deputy for Morrison County. He has 21 years of law enforcement experience, 19 years with the Morrison County Sheriff's Office. He's been a first responder for 26 years and 18 years with the Pierce Fire Department, where he's the current fire chief. Brian Bozer. Brian's currently the captain at Camp Ripley Fire Department for 10 years. He's a current EMT for Mayo Clinic Ambulance Service for the last 9 years. Member of the Pierce First Response Team. He's an 18-year member of the Pierce Fire Department, retired chief of 11 years. and Scott Sayre. Currently the Assistant City Administrator, Director of Community and Economic Development for the City of Sartell. He's a current member of the Pierce Fire Department and the Pierce Area First Response Team. And prior to joining Pierce, Scott was a member of the Sullivan Lake First Response and Hart Team. And then chaplain, we'll be recognizing him as well, Greg Valentine. He's our chaplain, Morrison County, serves our entire county. He's been the chaplain for 17 years, and he's also a pastor at Hollingford Community Country Church. So what I'll do is we're going to recognize the life-saving efforts of these four gentlemen. I'm just going to summarize the letters, and then what I'll do is recognize our chaplain as well, as they were all instrumental on this day. So on January 28, 2020, Morrison County Sheriff's Office received a report of an unknown medical off 285th Avenue, south of Lastrip in Butte Township. It was later learned that Greg Hyatt was driving southbound on 285th Avenue when he drove off the roadway and into a ditch full of snow. Teague Ishans, who couldn't be present with us today, but he's the one who called, he witnessed the incident and he went to check on the vehicle after it hit the ditch. He noticed Hyatt was behind the steering wheel, unresponsive, and had two of his grandchildren with, ages 18 months and 3 years old at the time of the incident. Ishans called 911, and law enforcement as well as the emergency services were dispatched to the scene. Within minutes of the initial 911 call, Pierce Police Chief Eric Hennigan arrived on scene, followed by Morrison County Deputy Dan Rushlow. Chief Hennigan and Deputy Rushlow assessed the driver and learned that he was not breathing. His skin was turning purple in color and no pulse was detected. Hyatt was removed from the driver's seat of the vehicle where life-saving efforts were immediately applied. Dispatch was alerted that this was going to be a full code and CPR was going to be conducted. These gentlemen were aware that additional resources were going to be needed, so they requested the Pierce Fire Department be dispatched to the scene. An automated external defibrillator, AED, and airway were put in place and used on Hyatt while CPR was in progress. Pierce firefighters Scott Sayre and Brian Bozer showed up minutes after they were paged out and immediately assisted in the CPR efforts. CPR was conducted for several minutes, with all four of these gentlemen rotating rescuer efforts to maintain effective compressions, as CPR takes a lot of physical endurance in order to be effective. The life-saving efforts continued as Hyatt was shocked 2 times by the AED prior to the Mayo Clinic ambulance showing up, and a pulse was then finally detected. Even after the Mayo Clinic ambulance arrived, these 4 gentlemen continued to assist as needed. There is no doubt in my mind that because of the selfless acts of these 4 men, Mr. Hyatt is alive today. The very first few minutes were critical for any chance of survival for Mr. Hyatt. All 4 of these guys took quick action, they remained calm, and they worked together as a team. In a call like this, time is critical and of the essence, and these guys ultimately paid tribute to Greg Hyatt's life-saving efforts, and we are forever grateful. Thank you. Give me 2 seconds to grab all this stuff. Sure. Put this on the bottom, please. Just hold that one. As long as we're up here, I'm going to talk a little bit about Greg Chaplin and his involvement. So Greg, I want to thank you for your actions on January 28th as you responded to a call, this medical, and you took custody of Greg Hyatt's grandchildren. On a cold winter day, you made sure that you kept them company, ensuring that everything was going to be okay, and making sure that they were comfortable inside your squad car. You also followed up with Greg's family members by passing on information relating to the medical and by providing updates. Like every call you respond to, you are there for the family. One of your roles as a chaplain is to support law enforcement in times of crisis. And you demonstrate once again your everlasting commitment to our agency and the communities that we serve. You represent the Sheriff's Office in a positive light, and we are grateful for you. You always display your godly compassion, and you are always willing and available to respond to all situations where your presence is needed. Thank you, Chaplain Valentine. We are honored to have you on our team. Thank you. Anybody want to say any words before you're seated? Okay. Actually, I got a mic for you here.
I just want to say to Greg and his family, how beautiful their grandchildren were that day. They had lots of questions about what was going on. And I'm Grandpa Greg too. And yes, and the kids, you know, a lot of them times just to help them with some psychological first aid when they saw the helicopter coming. And I said, you know what, we're trying to get Grandpa Greg some help. And I said that helicopter is going to get him to where he needs to go. And one thing I learned that day is car seats are a lot more complicated than you think when I switched them to my squad car. Used to be you just throw a strap across, and now it's all kinds of things. But I can't say enough about these four gentlemen up here. And there were some EMT people that were there too, and it's just the Life Flight crew. Everybody was just fantastic. And what I want to say is I don't think things happen by coincidence. I think they happen by providence. And God draws us closer to Him and to our families through these kinds of incidents. And every day these guys put their lives on the line when they go to those incidents too. So I just want to say thank you for being here today. And it's great to see a smiling face, because when we put somebody on the Life Link, we're really glad when it turns out like it did for you and your family. Thank you.
We're going to pretend I switched mics. Greg, would you want to say any words at all? If so, come on forward. And thanks again. I just want to say thanks to the family members. You guys are truly the support system. Like Chaplain Greg said, these guys are risking their lives every single day, putting themselves in danger. So, in times like this, when you turn on the news and you see everything negative, it's nice to get some positive, get something positive out to the media as well. So, with that.
Thank you, Sheriff. When somebody goes into cardiac arrest, usually the outcome isn't what you see here today. I talked to an emergency room doctor about it, and they said that only 17% of the people that it happens to in hospitals survive, and that's less than 10% outside of hospitals. So I look at all of this, and you brought up providence. God's providential care. I look at all of this, and I see it as God's grace that I am here today. But I gotta say this, that if I was not here today, it would be by God's grace that I would be in heaven with Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior. The reason I say this, one of the reasons, is because if I wasn't here today, all of you should still be commended, because you are people of good character. You are people that serve our communities, that care, that help, that give your all. When the call comes out, you move and you get things done. And I admire that, and I respect that greatly. So thank you. Thank you. And may God bless you and watch over you. And that's everyone.
With that, I still have them up here. If the board would like to share any comments, feel free to do so.
It's pretty hard to top what the gentleman just said, but what he said is absolutely true. We're so grateful for your service and your commitment to others, and, you know, it's commitment to strangers most of the time, and when the call comes, you guys, whether you're in the middle of a Christmas meal or what have you, you stand up and you move and you go and serve others, and we appreciate it very much.
Yeah, we want to thank you very much. You know, we see you all every day doing your jobs and stuff, and the way the press and stuff shows nowadays with police and everything, that's not what's really happening. You know, you guys are what's really happening out there. These other things are just hiccups in our system right now. But we thank you for all your work you do and all the dedication that it takes to be trained to do it. So thank you very much.
Yeah, it's like, I can only say thank you to gentlemen and everyone here, so.
Mr. Chair, if I may be so bold as to say it's not a secret, I have supported and been involved in law enforcement for many, many, many years. Also first responders. Anytime that CPR is started, anytime there is a save, it speaks a volume because there aren't very many saves. Hats off. Phenomenal job. Thank you, guys.
And again, it's a hard to follow up, but I know I'm speaking for the rest of the board here, how we support the sheriff's department, the police departments in this county and throughout the United States. Again, you, Sheriff, mentioned how the positive things come out, and this is just showing one thing that you guys do of many other things that you know, that you're out there protecting our community, and you strap on your uniforms and you go out there and you do one hell of a job. So again, thank you very much, and I personally appreciate you.
Doesn't matter to me, whatever.
I think we're okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to do a picture? Yeah, let's do a picture. If you could. If you guys want to come up, sorry, you just sat down, but maybe come up and we'll do a photo around here with the board.
Stand in front of us, and we just stand up.
Yeah?
Yeah, that would be good. As long as they wear their masks. we're fine.
Yeah,
They
put your
stand in
mask
front.
Where?
Maybe if you guys could come and maybe, I think in the front, yeah, let's take the front.
We just stand up, I think.
Stand right there. Right. Squeeze in.
Please, yes, I do, yes. Yeah.
Hey,
Front and center.
And if you're standing right here, like JJ, if you could go dig your
That's what I was trying to say, and Commissioner Winchell, he said,
pushing
move
it.
over, move
Commissioner
over.
Wincher, I'm gonna have you move that way.
You want me to go this way?
JJ a little bit. Yeah. And then Mike a little bit more. Well, I know, that's not even.
oh, gosh.
Mask or no mask?
Yeah, let's take them off.
There we go. My,
Thank you. Just hold it, brother.
thank you, my glasses are fogging up.
Okay. All right, right here. 3, 2, 1. All right, we got it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you fellas very much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Greg.
Can't do CPR and be effective if you don't break ribs.
For that training for when you need it.
Can't do CPR without breaking some ribs.
See you guys, see Scott.
Hey, Scott.
Okay. Okay, I'll follow this.
I was gonna say, if you go off the one on your computer, you might just say warrants, but the one in front of you says audit.
Okay, we'll do.
Well, there goes our crowd. Yeah. And done.
Okay.
Wow.
Administrative, we kind of backwards today.
All right, gentlemen. Next on the agenda, Crookneck Lake Improvement District. Morning.
Good morning.
Yes.
Okay, I think there's slides. If there's, maybe there's slides.
Yep, she's.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
getting them, sorry. All right, sorry, Dan.
Okay. Again, I'm Dan Sanger. We can go to the next one if you like, Deb. This was last year's performance plan. We did everything on the list except for the last one, redoing the establishment order. And as a board, we decided that we're gonna delay that. We're probably not gonna do it. The
If I may,
primary.
Mr. Chair, you can take your mask
Oh,
off.
can I
We
take it off?
understand- we
Yes,
can
oh,
understand you.
absolutely.
Oh, that's a whole lot easier. I lived in those for years when I was a medic. And so,
sure.
but there weren't these. The N95s are much easier to wear. We didn't do the establishment order. We were carrying 7 members on our board for the last 3 years. And our establishment order says 5. We were carrying 7. State statute says you can have between 5 and 9. But we had the right ratio of residents, always had a majority. But then after getting advice from legal counsel, from your counsel here, it was to come into compliance as soon as possible. And so, addressing it with our board, 2 members elected to resign, which brought us down to 5. We then created a special committee to the board to work special projects. And so now we're in compliance. And so we really have no reason now to redo the establishment order. And so we're gonna table it indefinitely at this point in time.
So, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I may, Dan, you have 5, and then the other 2, obviously 5 and 2 is 7, I get that, but do you generally meet with 7, or do you generally meet with 5?
We were meeting with 7.
Okay,
all along.
very good. Thank you. Just curious.
Yep. Okay, next slide. This one, this is the summer survey, and this was an odd year for surveys for Crookneck Lake. We do a spring survey for curly leaf, in which there was no curly leaf identified that we could treat, very, very small populations. And then you do a summer survey, and the summer survey found the 4 zones labeled 1 through 4 where there's curly leaf. And so then the question is, why is there delay? So we would normally be able to treat those 4 zones, but then the temperature's it's too high, it's above 50 degrees, so you can't treat it. And this was searching for Eurasian water milfoil, and there was one plant found, which is up in the zone of number 3, there's a blue dot there. So he manually removed that one by the roots. And so the milfoil was removed, although we have a lot of natives this year. But we still have those 4 zones of curly leaf that we couldn't treat. Talking with the other lakes in the area, Fish Trap and Alex, they also had very late growth of curly leaf. And so talking to the surveyors and the treaters, they believe it may have been because we all had an early ice in this year, or last year, followed by some slushy snow, water or rain, in December that caused it to be very opaque and the light didn't get down so they could grow. And then we had early ice out, which you would think, well, it'd start growing, but it was cloudy in the spring. And then the temperature got about 50 degrees, and then you can't treat. We waited until the very end. We were watching our temperature 48 degrees, and that's when we surveyed. We couldn't find any at a density that we could treat. Now comparing the treatment costs, because when I was here last year, we talked about, we went into it, could we treat with dicot, which is very inexpensive. So it costs us somewhere in the range to treat those zones. Let's see, I have the dollar value. For me to treat those zones would be relatively inexpensive in today's dollars, if I could use dicot versus Aquathol K. And so it's $600 to treat those 4 zones with dicot. But if I have to use Aquathol K, it's gonna cost about $4,800. And so
Who determines what you have to use, the DNR?
DNR, and the DNR fisheries doesn't like dicot because it's harmful to walleye populations. We don't have walleye, but never know when you could have a walleye. And so, but once they open up that door of using dicot on one lake, then other lakes will want it, and so they don't want to open the door. Aquathol K is more expensive, and it's predominantly because of the deep water. You have to do high concentrations when you have high water, and so that's what costs the money. And so we will be able to treat those 4 zones next year in the spring, because that we can put that on our permit, and then if we find any other zones, we can also treat those zones. So we're going into next year with a bill, one way or the other, and so we'll be able to treat them. Now this September, sometime this month, we will survey again. We're waiting for the weeds to go down, and we're gonna look for Eurasian water milfoil again. And then if we find it this September, October, we can still treat for the milfoil. And so we still may have a treatment bill. But right now, we have no treatment costs this year. It was just manually plugged, so it's an odd year for treatment for us. Okay, next slide, please. So last year when I was here, I was talking about how we were really, at the beginning of the year, we entered into a study with the DNR to use dicot, save some money, but we only treated half the lake. One zone of curlew, the other zone we didn't treat. It did come back up this year in that area, later in the year, but we only treated one, so we basically had winners and losers, if you will. We treated the area in the middle of the lake that we knew would blow around if we didn't treat it and spread the turions throughout the whole lake. The other lake area was kind of isolated, and so it wouldn't spread as much. And so we went to the $160 levy last year, which gave us the $22,000 that it came in, and then without the treatment. So now we're sitting pretty well at the ending balance, so that if we ever had high costs, we wouldn't have to have a winners and losers game if we couldn't go to dicot. And that was our big option this year, or last year, our goal, is we didn't want to get into a situation where, as a board, we had to decide, we only have so much money. Who do we treat in front of? And so do I treat your property, and I don't treat yours, and now somebody's upset. And so that's why we have the ending balance. So we're pretty happy with having that ending balance, and so I guess it was just fate. Okay, next slide. This is the performance plan for next year. Identical to this year's. We're gonna survey, treat, and then monitor for the water quality. Our water quality continues to be in a mesotrophic state, healthy lake. Phosphorus trending down, which is good. That's indicating little runoff going into the lake. And it's the clarity that is increasing. By increasing, we had an average of maybe 9.5 feet historically 5-6 years ago. Now we're up to 13 feet. So not a huge amount of increase on that you can clarity for looking down, but it's trending up, and that would indicate zebra mussels maybe.
Does that increase the growth of the weeds too then when you have clarity like that?
Deeper water, yep. And we're not a deep lake. And so that's one of our fears, is that if the depth goes down and then clarity increases, more weeds in the one areas of the lake, the center part of the lake, where we don't have weeds.
And I
So that
think I
could be an
read you
issue.
you did do a sample for testing of zebra mussels?
We did, and we don't have those back yet, but we do have zebra mussels that were identified at the
Oh, yeah.
access 3 years ago. One pair, nobody's ever identified anymore. And then, but this year, we did put, the plates out on 10 docks, trying to identify them there. Last year, Action Dock, who removes the docks, they removed over 40 docks, 40 properties. They didn't see anything, and the year before, they didn't see anything. So we haven't been able to find any adults, except for at the boat access that 1 year. So, but the lake appears to be healthy right now. Good population of native species. And so this is the performance plan that the board approved, presented to the membership, and the membership approved it. The next one, this is budget. This is kind of a busy slide, but it just kind of, we roll the costs over from last year into this year. You'll notice that we have no costs associated with treatment. And this is assuming on the treatment that we would have to use Aquathal K, not Diquat, to treat the zones that were identified last year. And so it's a high cost on that. If we could use the Diquat, the cost would probably be in the range of $3,000. And then you have to add on milfoil. And that's an unknown area. We just don't know. That last year was the first year we treated for milfoil. And so the DNR has given us authority that if we find it, we can treat a large area around it. So normally if it's in 1 acre, you treat 1 acre. They're gonna allow us to treat 3. We can blast all the way around it to try to control it and maybe get it out of the lake is the goal, because it's isolated right now. And so we just rolled all the basic costs over from 1 year to the next for this one. And then the next slide, I believe, is a levy slide. And this one, since we did this on a Zoom thing, and we had the board was all there, the board, we set the levy for it, but we did open it up for input from the audience, the members that were there. We thought there was only 14 online, because that's the names we could see, but we soon discovered that sometimes there was 10 people on one phone call, upwards to 10. One place was having a pizza party. And so it got to be a lively discussion. But basically the things that we were looking at was, we don't know if we're gonna have an availability of AIS grants next year. I did have a conversation with the DNR. They just don't know their budgets next year with the COVID and everything and money coming in. And so that's a question mark. We don't know if we're gonna be able to do the Diquat, so we have to plan for Aquathal K. So that's an unknown. We don't know the depth of the water, how much we'll find. The water has gone down 6 inches this year. That's a good trend. It's not flowing in since they did the Blue Line Trench that's up there. So that's the first time we don't have water flowing in year-round the last 2 years. So that's a market improvement for water not flowing in. And do we treat just one? Do we treat 2 AISs? Because this year we plucked out the 1 milfoil. Maybe we won't find any more. We just don't know. So we have some unknowns out there. And then we looked at the input that everybody gave us from the audience, and we came up with a recommendation of $70, and that's what the board passed. And so that's what we're gonna be asking for your concurrence today for the levy from the board. And I believe the last slide is just our membership, or our boards this year. The new members it's the same board as last year. It's almost virtually impossible to get people to sign up for the board.
And your levy was $160?
160 last year, we're back down to 70, and the
this
year
year.
before it was 60. And I believe if you took the average over since our beginning, we're at 65.
Good.
Good.
Commissioners, questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation from the lid of Crook Neck for the $70.
Motion by Commissioner Wincher,
I'll second that.
second by Commissioner Wilson. Discussion?
Mr. Chair, if I could, it's the budget and the levy that we approve in this.
Okay.
Sure.
All right, I just want to thank you for the nice slideshow you gave us and then the good work you're doing out there. We appreciate it very much.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, Commissioner Jelinski.
We talked about the lake is down 6 inches. After all the rain, we're still down 6 inches?
Yeah, we got 3.7 inches a few weeks back.
Yep.
We bumped up, and we come back down.
Okay, which is a positive, I'm anticipating.
Absolutely, it's a positive.
For you all the way around for
Yeah,
that.
we're down 6 inches since ice out.
Okay, and you said you had a pretty lively group when you had your meeting. I'm anticipating that you entertained 160 at one point in time again, I don't know that.
Oh, no, what it was some people said, well, we're chasing our tail, because it's almost like whack-a-mole. We got, curly leaf goes, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
And the turians were, they can last up to 7 years. So they sprout, and who knows where they're gonna sprout. And so that was a big discussion, should we even have it? Some people would like to redo the establishment order and go into pumping water. Other people don't wanna have anything to do with pumping water. And so it went in every direction.
That's
That
okay.
was a livelihood, and we let it run.
Yep.
And so we just opened, we said, go ahead, we were talking levy, and we just let it go. And so we have, as a board, we have no interest in getting involved in pumping water because, where would you pump it to?
Yep.
We could go to Blue Line Trench, but then it's gotta go to Todd County, and that's not gonna work. And so, the lake's trending down like it should.
Okay, very
And
good.
so, some people said, to fully fund the 25,000, it would have to be 235.
Yep.
That was discussed the year before, and we went to 160. And so, yeah, it varied all the way from 235 down to 0, to not treating any weeds, to treating everything. We just let it run.
So, but it was through a lively discussion that you ended up with $70.
Yes.
And it was obviously a pretty good group discussion that said, yeah, 70 we could live with. I meant, okay, that's what I was looking for.
Oh, yes.
Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve the levy and the budget? Aye, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Very good report, too.
Next on the agenda, Land Services Report. Morning, Amy.
Good morning, Miss Amy.
Morning.
All right, I have one item for you today, and that is to consider the conditional use permit for Allen Lanners, and this is to expand to a Tier 3 poultry and beef feedlot. This was recommended for approval by the Planning Commission at their last meeting, and they recommended 5 conditions, and those are in your packet. I'll go through them if you'd like me to, otherwise, that's what I've got before you today.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion.
Motion by Commissioner Jelinski,
I'll second that.
by Commissioner Wilson for further discussion. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Pretty painless, thank you, Amy.
We are a little ahead of schedule, Mr. Chair, and I let folks know that, but they're on their way.
Would you like to go to you, or?
We can certainly do that.
All right, we'll skip ahead a couple and go to Administrator's Report.
Let me,
Oh. All right.
what would you
Oh,
like me to
yeah,
do?
let's just continue.
Okay,
Yeah.
I have one action item, there are a couple of updates I'll give, but one is to approve, the purchase of a floor scrubber. We have that on a regular routine, replacement schedule. It was budgeted for in our capital and equipment fund, and so that's what I'm seeking approval for today. The total is just over 7,000, and again, they're rotated on a regular basis, so we make sure we have equipment that's working.
Commissioners, could I get a motion and a second?
I'll make that motion. for
Motion by
discussion.
Commissioner Wilson. Second by Commissioner Blaine. Discussion?
Deb, is there any way that you can pay for that with that COVID money? I mean, with the extra cleaning and stuff, I would think that would kind of fit into that category.
And the struggle we're having, it was an already budgeted piece of equipment versus an extra one. I kind of pushed back on that too when we looked and really, couldn't exactly find the caveat for that, but we tried.
Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, with that being said, is there a need for 2?
Well, we were able to make do with what we have right now and didn't think we needed another one, so we didn't put that in the COVID plan. just because you need people to operate them when you're using them, and only one person can do that at a time, and it seems like it's working right now. There was some other equipment that we looked at, but this one wasn't one that was on that list.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Any other discussion? All in fa, is it a roll call?
Yes.
So roll call, gentlemen. Commissioner Winter?
Aye.
Commissioner Jelinski?
Aye.
Commissioner Blaine?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Motion carried. Morning, Chelsea.
Good morning.
Morning, Chelsea.
Before you today, I have a request for approval for the trail agreement between the county and the Eastern Morrison County Four-Wheeler Club. And behind that, I also have a resolution to sponsor the Eastern Morrison County Four-Wheeler Club for the state fiscal year 2021.
Would you like them separate, Deb?
They can be together, Mr. Chair.
Make that motion.
Motion by Commissioner Wilson,
Second.
second by Commissioner Winter. Discussion? This is something we do every year. It's a
Correct.
continual thing. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Sorry.
And last but not least, a request for paying the bills.
Mr. Chair, I'll make motion to approve the warrants.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Blaine, second by Commissioner Jelinski. Discussion? Roll call. Commissioner Jelinski?
Aye.
Commissioner Blaine?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Commissioner Winter?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Chelsea.
you.
You, Chelsea.
Chelsea.
Wow.
Deb, did you?
Just wanted to just give you a couple updates from last week on what we were working on. The nonprofit assistance program for CARES money did go out, so you can direct folks if you hear of folks interested or if they need help with that. We do have an arrangement with Morrison County United Way to help us administer that, so I'm very appreciative of their board supporting that effort. They're going to help with making sure that questions are answered and applications are complete with supporting documentation, and make sure that when that application period closes, there's a nice, neat package for you to consider. As we had discussed last week at the planning session, we didn't put a limit on it. We don't know for sure what needs are out there, and so we'll see what response we get, and then you'll have decisions to make regarding levels of funding for various grants, both individually and as the program as a whole. So those will be coming in. If you need copies or anything, otherwise direct them to the front page of our website. That's there. And then it has within the application documentation where those submissions should be sent. But that's being worked on. We are working to get final numbers on costs for, well, up-to-date numbers, because it goes through the end of the year, but final numbers on the staffing costs, so we can get a better plan, or get a better idea on where we're at with that. I'm working with the departments. We have a meeting on Wednesday to finish and go through some of that. And Carol Anderson with the RDFA should be getting to the RDFA board some numbers for the business assistance program. And I know the request came in greater than what was initially allocated, but as far as where the numbers kind of played out for looking at the specific applications and making sure we had substantiation for all of them, I haven't seen yet, but I anticipate that this week, and I'll get that to you guys so you know where we're at. Yeah, other than that, the sheriff's office folks are moving in upstairs for that final phase of our remodel. So that's going to be ready to go, and it's looking good up there. There's a few furniture items that need to trickle in here yet, but otherwise, it's amazing how a person starts that a couple of years ago, and now all of a sudden we're getting to the tail end. And then with that, the swing space, the temporary space that we've had will be back in business. It'll be nice to have meeting rooms available again, and I'm grateful that we had that room during this time period, and during the last couple of years, it certainly has made this much more manageable. So that is coming to a close, which is crazy, but more finalized documentation and more finalized efforts will be put in place over the course of the rest of the year, really. We'll play that out, and you'll hear more about that, but the at least move-in phase is going to be complete soon, so that's, yep.
Yes.
I would just like to follow up on what Deb said about having a meeting space and having room. And truly, that goes back years past, before any of us here, that commissioners before us, whether they saw the vision back then or not, it doesn't matter, but they did. They saw a vision of one day there's going to have to be an expansion. And quite honestly, that's what we were handed. That's what we were left with. and I really truly mean this, hats off to those forward thinkers from days gone by, that we had that space available. Quite honestly, had we not, who knows? I mean, how it would have been done. It doesn't make any difference. We would have got it done. We would have worked through it. But I think it was so much cleaner to be able to have space to work through. And I can't speak highly enough for that. Didn't mean to interrupt you, but thank you. I needed to get that over.
No, it's perfect. 25, 30 years ago, a plan was put in place and we're completing that. It's amazing how time flies, that's for sure. And we've got a great facility that serves the public. It's a little confusing. I mean, there's two stories connected by a split level. It gets a little confusing, but we're using the space as it was designed and we're actually using it better. And I'm very pleased at the customer service focused centers that we have and making sure that we're trying to get people in the place that can help them instead of running all over the facility. So I do appreciate the board support throughout in terms of getting this building and getting our organization really up to good service levels and good service plans. So thank you for that. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
We're gonna do committee reports. Commissioner Jelinski, would you like to start?
Sure. I would anticipate we're going from about the 13th through the 26th.
That's correct.
On the 14th, is that the start of the AMC conference via web on the 14th?
I think so. Is that right on the dates? I just saw
That's
that.
what I have
The
down.
policy conference you're
Yeah,
speaking?
policy conference, which starts at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I won't be able to make it, believe it if you can, that day. I've got an appointment in St. Cloud. But at 6:30 that evening, Morrison County Public Safety is gonna meet via Teams. On the 15th at 8:30 in the morning, we have a planning meeting, followed by a budget meeting at 10:30. On Wednesday, the 16th, I've got a 5 o'clock Hands of Hope meeting. That's also via the web, Teams. On the 17th, at 10 o'clock in the morning, I've got a Central Minnesota Emergency Services Board Owners and Operators meeting. At 1 o'clock, then the Fall Policy Committee, according to the information I have, for me, for public safety, I think, is on at 1. And at 7 o'clock that evening, I've got Egg Society. That, I believe, is in person, and that, I believe, is at the fairgrounds. On the 18th, there's a possibility that the Fall Policy Committee will continue if needed, is the understanding that I have. And on the 22nd, at 9 o'clock in the morning, we have a county board meeting. Prior to that, I don't really know if that's at 8 o'clock, that the 4-H, that's a 4-H breakfast morning or 4-H gathering morning, I believe. So I don't know if we actually will, that's not for me to
I'm
say.
not certain. I don't have the plans that are tied
Okay,
down for sure, but
But
we'll
that's
let
what
you
I,
know.
that's
Yep.
my understanding, is it's a 4-H deal. On the 24th at 12:30 in the afternoon, I have a State Emergency Communications Board meeting. That's via Teams or the web. And, Mr. Chair, that's all I have.
Commissioner Blaine?
Mr. Chair, the only thing I can add is on September 24th at 6 PM, I have a Region 5 Development Commission meeting.
Is that at Sourcewell or virtual?
That will be virtual at this point.
Commissioner Wilson?
On the 15th, community development at 12:15. And on the 25th, Mississippi Headwaters at 9 o'clock. And it could be either way yet. It'll be in Walker, otherwise it'll be virtual. And that's it.
14th, Yellow Ribbon at the Viking Club, 5:30. 16th, Public Health. It's gonna be a web-based meeting, 5 o'clock. That's all I got different. Commissioner Wincher?
Okay, on the 15th, I got a Zoom for Great River Regional Library at 5:30. Any additions? I have, I just faxed this or texted to Deb. There's a meeting, a Zoom meeting with the, first watershed, planning implementation for Rum River. And that's gonna be on the 24th, don't have a time, that's gonna be a Zoom. But again, I would like to put that on this coming planning session, cause they had some questions, so I I sent you a little bit, so I'd like to discuss that at the planning session. They want the counties to each make some type of decision, but we'll move forward on that. And then on the Friday, the 25th, here again at the county board meeting, I got soil and water at 8 o'clock, and that'll take care of mine.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I won't be, but I won't be able to attend that. I have other things going.
Commissioner Blaine?
Mr. Chair, I was just curious if on Tuesday, the 22nd, following our county board meeting, if we will also have a budget meeting that morning too. I don't have it on my calendar, but I would if I would put that on.
I don't have one now. I don't think we needed to schedule. I think everybody who was presenting or all the topics would have been concluded by then, because we need to approve the preliminary, that's probably going to be done on the 22nd. And then we'll take a break, and then we'll get back at it if we need to meet again on budget.
Very well, thank you.
And Mr. Chair?
Yes.
That's what I have also on my calendar, is that we're setting a preliminary budget that day.
Levy.
I'm
Yep. And
sorry,
yes,
Senate
both
run.
preliminary budget and levy, yep.
Anything else, gentlemen? Could I get a motion second to adjourn?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Commissioner Blaine,
Second.
second by Commissioner Wincher. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.
All right, good job, Mr. Chair.
Good job.